everyone, how's it going? So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to remove the front fascia or front bumper, if you will, from my 2008 Grand Prix with the GXP package. Now there's two styles to the front end. There's one that's the base model, and then you have one that's the GXP. Okay, they're basically the same except for styling. They are interchangeable as long as you change out the fenders. So the installation and removal is basically the same for these. So if you have a base model Grand Prix or not the GXP, this is pretty much the same method. So it will work for both. So it's a simple job. Shouldn't take more than 15 minutes to get this done. The reason that I'm doing it is because I'm going to be installing a transmission cooler, but you may need to replace yours for whatever reason. I'm going to show you how to go ahead and get this thing off. So let's get started. Okay, so getting the headlamps out or off is actually pretty easy to do. You may have the white plastic retaining tabs here, in which case you'll actually just take it and lift it up a little bit and then it should slide right out. Or you have the metal style. This is like a bracket that holds it in place. I have the bracket style. You got a 10mm bolt here. Go ahead and remove that. Then you lift up on the bracket. The headlamp should just come right out. Okay, so since I'm trying to get as much of the wiring out of the way as possible, this is the wiring harness for the headlamp. You can see your corner lamp is here, the bulb is attached, then you have your low beams, and then you have your high beams, okay? So this harness, you can see here how easy it is to separate the bulbs from the actual plug. I've got a video on this, but this little tab right here, just pull it back, and then you should be able to yank it out. But anyway, the entire harness right here for the headlights, you can see there's a little plastic tab on the inside of this thing right here. Just take a flat blade screwdriver and push it away from the harness and then pull out. It should come right out. Okay, so you have a wheel well liner or fender liner that runs around your wheel, okay, around the tire. That has to be removed. Now you could in fact actually just remove the few that are on this side, which would then give you access to the screws on the underside of the front fascia. Now one thing you do want to note here with all of these bolts, there's actually two different bolts here. They're actually the same size, but one of them has a washer on the end, and those actually go into the plastic portion of the wheel well protector, okay? And then you got your bolts here that don't have the wide washer on those. Those actually go to the fender itself or the fascia. There's actually more of them. If you go all the way around, it's actually attached to the fender. There's actually more here. Those are your small ones, okay? I also wanted to mention that if you're having trouble getting to any of these or reaching into any of these, then you can always lift the vehicle up. You don't even need the tire off the ground. Just lift the vehicle up. That'll give you enough room to get your arms in there and be able to get at all of these. Okay, so just to show you that you don't even need to take the entire wheel well or the fender protector off, is you can see here, I just moved this away. That allows us access to this one bolt that's right there. As ridiculous as this is, if you look this up in the GM manual, they have you remove this whole thing, but you don't even have to do that. So it took 3 bolts to actually loosen this up enough where I could actually get to this one right here. So you can actually see your washer fluid level sensor right there, and you can actually see your washer fluid pump right there. If you ever needed to get to that, it's pretty easy to do from here. So let's go ahead and do this for the other side. Okay, so one final note. The fender liner, getting that out of the way, required a total of 4 of the wide washer 7mm bolts, as well as 8 of the narrow washer 7mm bolts in order to be able to get this away on both sides. So that's what we have in total, and a wire brush would really help clean these up, which I'm going to do before I put everything back together. So now we can go ahead and start removing the other bolts as part of the front fascia. Okay, so with the headlamp off, you can actually see you've got two 10mm bolts. There's one at the very end down there, see if I can get focused. There's one right there, which is the one we needed to remove the liner just to get to that one down there. And then you've got one up here up front. Just reach in underneath here with your 10mm and you should be able to get those two out. And there's two on the opposite side of the vehicle. Okay, so before we get to the retainers, we're going to go ahead and we're going to remove the bulb out of the fog lamps, and this comes out easy. Now I have aftermarket fog lamps, but we'll go ahead and remove the bulb. Okay, so there's a total of 5 retaining clamps or tabs on the top of the fascia, and then there's 5 underneath. We're going to go ahead and do the ones underneath here. That's what they look like right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 underneath. So we're going to go ahead and get to the ones underneath first. That way, actually, we don't have the fascia fall on us when we're underneath the car. So let's go ahead and get the ones underneath first. Alright, so if you're looking, this is the front of the vehicle here. If you look underneath, you'll see the tabs right there. There's one right there. There's a total of 6 of these. They're up underneath the fascia, and what I've always done with these things here, see if I can get focused, is I just take a flat blade screwdriver, bring it up underneath, and then just kind of pull away. There's an inner tab, and then there's an outer catch. So I'm going to have to do this with 2 hands, but just take your flat blade screwdriver and just kind of pull it up, and then the inner tab will actually release, and that should allow the whole thing to fall right out. Alright, so this is what it looks like when it's out. You can see you get this inner plunger, and what that does is that applies pressure so that this thing will hold in place. So once you get this plunger out, or inner tab, then they all should just fall right out. Okay, so with all of the plastic retaining clips on the bottom portion removed, we have 2 more 7mm bolts on each side. So right in front of the wheel, you'll see we've got these 2 7mm bolts that actually hold the fascia to the second piece, the inner piece of the whole fascia. So we'll go ahead and remove those, and then we'll be done on the underside. There's 2 on each side. Okay, so for the remaining 5 plastic tabs that are on the top side, I don't know if I'll be able to get in so close with this, but you can see there's a little notch. There's 2 notches on each one of these on each side. That's where you actually take your flat blade screwdriver and you notch it up underneath there to lift the plunger up, okay? Once you get that up, then this piece should come right out. Okay, so I did forget to mention that the outer portion of this here, if you lift up a little bit, then you can get the outer portion out. So it's basically like the ones underneath, except they're just a little bit differently designed. Alright, so there's nothing left that's actually holding the fascia in place. There's 2 little notches over here that are actually keeping it from falling off. So basically what you want to do is you want to take the whole thing, underneath here is a good spot, and just pull it away from the vehicle. So pull it towards you, nice and easy. You don't want to have anything quite possibly catch. Now, you're still going to have your H11s at the bottom that are going to be connected. However, you can in fact take it and set it down nice and gentle. In fact, if you had a mat or something you could place it on, that would actually be the best thing, which I don't. But setting it down nice and gentle temporarily until you can get your H11s disconnected, then you should be able to pull the whole thing away. I'll go ahead and give you a better view of this whole thing now. Alright, so here's a look at the front. Your H11s are down here. Now you can get access to these. You don't have to actually take your fascia off in order to get to these. There's that door right there. I have another video on this, on replacing the H11s. I have LEDs that are, see if I can get my camera to focus. I actually have LEDs installed, so the easiest thing to do here is just reach in, twist it. It should come out. Again, I have aftermarket LEDs. So now we can go ahead and disconnect the harness, or you can just set this aside. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it myself. In fact, Since the whole thing is off and I'm removing my transmission and engine in this particular project, I'm just going to disconnect it right here. This is not something you need to do. You can see right here, these black tabs right here on the outer end, just pull those away and this should separate. Same thing goes for your turn signals right here. Okay, those just pull right out. And then the main connect is right here, so I'm just going to pull that away. Now I do have actually a resistor on here, which you can see, which was required for my turn signals because I'm using LEDs. So I will have to disconnect that as well, but that won't be a part of the requirement. So I'll go ahead and do that for both sides. You know, I always thought these things looked pretty weird without their front fascia on them. Just always looks interesting. So anyway, just if you want to go over a quick parts list of what's underneath here, you've got your washer reservoir that's right here. So there's the pump back there. There's your level sensor that's right here. That's what tells you if you're low on washer fluid or not. Here's your horn, which is on the left here. Got a couple of videos on that as far as repairing it if needed. Of course, we have the harness for the headlamps, fog lamps, H11s. Running across here, what's interesting is some of my foam actually broke off and is lodged in here. I don't know why that is. This is actually a new front fascia. So here's your front bumper. And of course, more harness over here. On the other side, there's nothing really to speak of. If you kind of look up underneath there, you can see where the intake comes in, where the air comes in for the intake, that is. That's why it's not very efficient, because it's behind all this stuff here. Of course, here's the fascia itself. And we'll get down here and we'll look at this thing. So you got your turn signal lens housing, your turn signal housings, bulbs, whatever you want to call them, on the outside. You've got your H11 housing underneath here. Here's what I believe is the 5 mile-an-hour bumper. I think that's what they call it. I could be wrong. Somebody will obviously correct me if I am wrong. So this is somewhat broke right there in that spot for some reason. I don't know why. And then you've got your grill here. You got the lower grill down here. And yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much to these at all. I'll do a video on getting these out, getting your lower grill out, which will require removing the fascia, unfortunately, because you can't get enough hand room in here to reach under here and grab these tabs. So yeah, that's pretty much it. This thing is out, and getting it back in is exactly the reverse. Since I have a large project ahead, I'm not gonna do the installation video for this, but getting it in is the exact same thing. It helps if you have a friend to line everything up for you, but you can do it by yourself. Just make sure you're all lined up. And most importantly, these two tabs here that are sticking out, just make sure they're all the way forward. I'll show you where that's at down here. So if you're looking underneath here, you can see the hole right here. Just make sure those are notched in. And it'll take a little bit of wiggling to get everything all lined up perfectly and whatnot, but it's not too bad. So, alright, if you have any questions, let me know. So, project done in about 15 minutes. Take care, guys.